We're often taught from a very early age to be humble, to not be self-congratulatory or over-toot our horns. So a question that requires you to toot your horn, that can be downright painful. Interviewers know this, so sometimes they'll ask, "What would your coworkers say about you?" This allows you to share your best traits through the lens of someone else, because for sure you're going to share the glowing stuff, right? And this usually feels a lot easier for people. So how do you prepare for this question and how do you answer it? Here are 3 quick tips. First, review the job description and any notes you have about the role. The interviewer isn't looking to hear about your mad skills on the office kickball team. She's trying to gauge fit. Try and frame your answer in the context of that job description. So if they need a strong problem solver, for instance, maybe you share that your office nickname is Mr. Fix-It because you're so good at solving those it's impossible kinds of challenges. Next, review your LinkedIn recommendations and performance reviews before the interview. Your best answer might be right under your nose. Scan through those reviews and any recommendations you've received and see if there are some golden nuggets that you might share. And if it's on LinkedIn, mention it to the interviewers so they can read the whole recommendation if they want more detail. And finally, back up your statement with evidence. If you think your colleagues would say that you're super creative, resist the urge to say, "People like that I can think outside of the box." Instead, share a tangible example of your creativity that again ties to the job description. This question provides you with a terrific opportunity to share how amazing you are without feeling like you're showboating. I say go for it. Let's see how someone might answer this question, and then I'll give a little bit of feedback.
I think my coworkers would tell you that I'm the one you turn to when it's time to make sure everyone stays motivated and on track to pull off big, high-profile projects. In fact, in one of my LinkedIn recommendations, my supervisor refers to me as the human glue, which is something I'm pretty proud of. She gave me that recommendation after we went through an incredibly complex ERP implementation. It was one of those stressful time-critical projects that required the team to come together and make things happen in a short amount of time. I not only kept the crew going, sometimes through long evening and weekend hours, but inspired to bring their absolute best to the project every day. I think that they also appreciated all the pizza and donuts I brought in too.
This is a solid answer, especially if you're interviewing for a job with strong focus on project coordination and teamwork. You shared something specifically related to the job, and you also pointed the interviewer to a supervisor's favorable LinkedIn recommendation. Finally, I like that you shared a bit of humor. It's not only okay to show your human side when you're interviewing, it's a smart strategy.
Hiring managers will often ask the question, why are you leaving your current role? It's a test. Are you running away from something, or are you running towards something? My name is Brian Romao. I'm Chief of Staff to the CEO at LinkedIn, and I've interviewed hundreds of candidates over the last few years. My advice when you get this question is simple. Number 1, stay positive. Resist the temptation to disparage your current job or employer or your boss. Number 2 is to portray it more in the light of what you want to get out of your next role. And number 3 is to relate that to the specific job you're interviewing for today. Let's see how a candidate might answer that question, and I'll be back in a minute to share my thoughts.
I'd like to leave my current role because I'm eager to find a new opportunity and grow. As you can see, I've been doing the same kind of work for 2.5 years, and I'm starting to stagnate. My company doesn't have a role open for the next step up, unfortunately. So, I'm excited about the opportunity of becoming a sales manager at your company. The new role will let me use the skills I've developed in my current role making cold calls, hooking in new clients with pithy but inspiring opening lines, following up with carefully crafted emails, listening to their pain points, and then offering up solutions that can solve their problems. I'm eager to make a fresh start, and I want to use my cold calling and listening skills to help craft an even better solution with the product I be working on in this new role.
I think she did a great job. Number one, she was positive. She talked about her eagerness, her excitement about the new role. She did mention she's starting to stagnate in her current role, and so I might recommend tweaking that language a little bit to make it more positive. The second point is that she talked about leveraging her current skills in order to gain even new skills and have new experiences as a sales manager, and I think that's really fantastic. And that brings me to the third point in terms of how she framed this in the context of the new role and the new job she's applying for. She did a really good job with this, and one recommendation I would say is to think about how she can make it more specific to the company that she's applying for. What are the products that they offer that are so meaningful to you, and why are you so excited to be able to sell those products at this company? But overall, I think she did a fantastic job.
I've worked with a lot of job seekers over the years, and I don't recall anyone ever saying, "Oh yeah, my employment gap? No big deal, right?" Most people are super nervous about how a gap will be perceived, even if there's a perfectly good explanation. If you're preparing for an interview and wondering how to handle this question, here's the good news. They've invited you in, so the gap hasn't ruled you out, but you should definitely be ready to discuss it. What's the best way to answer this question? First, be honest. The truth will set you free. Definitely put the situation into the best light, but don't lie. It's bound to come back and haunt you. So, if your job was eliminated through a merger, just say so. Next, be confident and unapologetic. This is a big one. If you act like you're embarrassed or ashamed that you've dared to take some time away, the interviewer is going to pick up on that. It's kind of like when you have a toddler. If they trip and fall, do you run screaming, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" No, because then they'll pick up on your panic and start crying their heads off. Instead, you pause and you see how they respond. And most often, everything is okay. Same principle here. The more calm, succinct, and confident you are, the more at ease the interviewer will be with your response and with you. And last, bring up the good that came out of that time. Whether you were laid off, stepped away to be with family, or even got fired, there were certainly upsides to that time away. Share them. It's a great way to reframe the situation and potentially an opportunity to showcase some skills that you gained across that time. Skills that'll come in handy when they hire you for that role. Let's see how someone might address this question, and then I'll share some feedback.
Yes, so in 2014, I was working in Seattle as a global finance manager. I loved my job and got to travel all over the world. My dad, who lives in Michigan, was diagnosed with dementia that same year, and my mom was having a hard time giving him the level of care he needed. I decided to put my career on pause and go help them. I not only got to spend quality time with my parents and sister, I was able to get their finances in order so that when it was time for him to enter a care home, they were in a great spot to afford it. He's doing really well at the facility, so now I can refocus on my career.
Great job. You covered all the key points here. First, it's honest. You left work to care for a family member. Your delivery is strong, it's confident, and you're unapologetic about the gap. And finally, you showcase the positive by explaining your action plan to keep your finance skills sharp. Great job.
What are your salary expectations? This is a question you'll get all too often. I'm Mike Derrison, Vice President of LinkedIn Learning Solutions. I've hired many people in my career, and I'm going to walk you through a few tips so that you can master this question. The first tip, don't give a specific number. It's very tempting to give a number. Instead, you want to provide a range. You don't want to lowball because that's going to obviously work against you. At the same token, if you go too high, you may freeze yourself out of this opportunity. So the second tip, come in and do some neutral research. And with that research, you want to come in and share that range. So for example, you may want to find for your role, provide information such as this role, based on the research I've done, pays between $70,000 to $90,000. By putting that range on the table, it does a couple things. One, an employer then will have to base their comp at least on those numbers because you've established what the competitive benchmarks are. Now, the next thing I want to advise you on is how do you actually get those ranges? Where do you go? There's multiple places to go on the internet. One that's very good is LinkedIn Salary Tool, because with all the data that LinkedIn has, we can provide very good information on a whole array of roles. As a matter of fact, we have information over 1,000 roles based on function, based on industry, based on location. And last but not least, don't forget to bring up signing bonuses. That's often a way to bridge the gap at the end of a negotiation. So if you follow these 3 tips, you're going to be well on your way to mastering the question, what are your salary expectations? Good luck. Let's run through a live example and see how someone might answer this question.
Thank you for the question. I've been doing some research on the market for sales analysts. What I found from LinkedIn Salary Tool is that here in Chicago, base pay for these jobs tends to run between $61,000 and $71,000. Half the companies pay bonuses as well. Given the global impact of your company and the fact that candidates with master's degrees like me are being recruited most heavily, I think we should be looking toward the top end of that range.
That was a solid answer. Well done. You followed the 3 tips really well. I liked how you started out with not getting tempted to give a specific number. Second, you brought neutral research to the table. This establishes you as someone who's trustworthy, someone who's confident and grounded. I like the tone that you brought. And then last but not least, I think you did a really credible job of showing why you should be at that higher range. And so you really came across as confident and steady in the approach to how you answer that question. Good luck getting that compensation you're dreaming for.